Bye, have a great time.
ADR, this is King Black, and I want to present to you guys a dichotomy, and this is called Latin Kings in California, and it highlights some problems. Now, I've been hearing rumors for a few years now, and maybe people might say that this may be more than a decade old, but I've been hearing rumors of Latin Kings in California, specifically down in southern Cali. Now, I initially I initially wrote this off as baseless rumors, especially since officially there hasn't been mention from what I know from the bloodline side with the tribes on the East Coast of any chapters in Cali. Only once in 10th grade did I hear someone outside the nation say Land King's 13, but 10th grade, you're what, 14 years old, so 15, 16, 14, 16, whatever, and you write these off. It's just kids talking some BS. You had people claiming F-14 where I was in the East Coast. It makes no sense for anybody to be claiming F-14 since that's a Fresno thing. Now, then I happened upon this video where I was put on YouTube, and the title was Latin Kings California, which I'm going to post the link down below so you guys can go ahead and check it out for yourself. And the persons featured in this video gave a little bit of background of how they were started and how they started repping Kings, the almighty Latin King and Queen Nation. But the story being of a couple of members from KMC, which is Chicago, made their way to Cali in a criminal state of mind with bank robberies on their mind and whatnot. And for the brief time they were there, they basically recruited what became the originals or the first generation of the Cali Kings, of the native California Latin Kings, of the southern and mid-Cali based pockets. And they disappeared shortly after, which the kings in the video says themselves they weren't given much knowledge by these kings that came from Chicago. Basically they're repping LK but don't know too much about the Constitution and the whole history of it all, as they were never given that. They were just basically plucked up, recruited, and then left to their own devices after that, as those kings left back to the Midwest or what have you, where they died or they moved somewhere else. And this suggests to me the formation of ghost tribes, which I'm not going to elaborate on if you're not inside the nation, because then I'm going to have people saying I'm exposing crap here. But ghost tribes leads little to the imagination, all right? As the ones in, if you don't know what it is, you can probably Google it and it will tell you. As the ones in the video admit that knowledge wasn't passed down, and they themselves don't know what connections, if any, to Chicago that they have. And for that, I can't blame them. I mean, Cali is similar to Chicago in the sense that they have their own way of doing things that has been set in stone due to decades of warfare and too much bloodshed. They explain that they are basically in two worlds. They claim Lion Kings and live for the nation, but they also make no mistake that they also owe allegiance to the Mexican Mafia. After all, in Cali, especially southern Cali, in the jails and the pen, La M, the Mexican Mafia, has a big hand. So to those outside of Cali, this poses quite a perplexing dilemma, especially with La M and Southside 13 connections they have out of sheer necessity and for survival. The Kings are mostly, I feel Cali is kind of a Chicago. Like, I don't think any Atlanta-based gang can move into Chicago and have a big enough presence there to forever change the landscape of Chicago. In the same way I feel that gangs from outside of Cali can't move into Cali and just leave their own presence, their own history, their own footprint, that 5 generations later they're still going to be there. Basically, there's like 4 major umbrellas you can fall under in Cali. It could be Blood, Crip, Nathaniel Sereno, you know. And even though there's a whole bunch of other gangs thrown in there, and gangs that go way back, 50, 60 years. But in terms of Latin Kings being in California, I know a lot of people are going to say, man, they're fake claiming. But there's no doubt many of these people in the video have more tats than some hardcore members in Chi-Town or the East Coast have. So you can't necessarily just write them off as wannabes. You know, they're doing what they know. They're doing the best with what they got. Now, personal opinion, I don't know what Chicago's stance is about expanding westward. You know, I don't claim to hold any weight in the Midwest. But, you know, it seems like through the tone of the video, they would be open to some sort of guidance from the Midwest. But given the whole, you know, falling under the umbrella of 13 poses a big, you know, stick in the mud, you know what I'm saying? You know, puts them in this purgatory. You know, they started off as kings, but then out of necessity, survival, and depends, they had to go with Liamis, so now they added the 13, and they can't spread eastward, can't establish any chapters eastward because, you know, Bloodline don't play that. Anything that has to do with 13 or the 6-pointer star is basically enemy on sight, you know. Gets handled with, gets dealt with fast. Or even 7-star if you're talking about Trini, but you know, from what I see from these kings on this video, they seem to be highly localized, you know, something that for me is a very interesting study, you know, because here's a tribe that they want to be accepted, but they're not currently accepted, at least in my point of view. What do you guys think? Check it out for yourself.